The late preacher and Bible teacher John Phillips wrote of an experience he had. Here are his words. I saw once in a country novelty store a copy of the Constitution of the United States of America. It had been written longhand by an artist. The spacing of the words, however, was unusual. Some of the words and letters were cramped together. Others were spaced out, some of them quite far apart. There seemed to be no reason for the haphazard way the penman had written out the words. That is, there seemed to be little sense to it until one stood back a little way. Then the artist's purpose was clear. He had so written that copy of the Constitution that the cramped areas provided shaded areas on the paper, and the spaced out words provided light areas. The result was that he had not only written out a copy of the Constitution, he had also drawn a portrait of George Washington. It was a very effective piece of work. Now, that is how the Spirit of God has written the Bible. Why, for example, should he dismiss the creation of all the suns and stars of space in 5 brief words? In Genesis chapter 1, he made the stars also, yet devote about 50 chapters to telling of the Jewish tabernacle. In Genesis chapter 4, the history of some 1,500 years is disposed of in 9 verses, yet a quarter of the book of Genesis is devoted to the story of Joseph, a man who was not even in the Messianic line. The rise and fall of great world empires are barely mentioned, yet God dwells long and lovingly on the stories of men like Abraham, Jacob, and Moses. The great world figures who strutted across the pages of history are mostly ignored or are mentioned in an offhand way, and then only when their careers touched on the history of Israel. Yet God will spend chapter after chapter writing down the requirements of the offerings, going into the smallest detail, even saying the same thing over and over again. There has to be a reason. There is. God is writing into the pages of his word a full-length portrait of his beloved Son, the Lord Jesus. Please arrange your schedule to join us during the next 3 weeks, starting June 6th, as we consider some of these biblical masterpieces that so vividly depict God's Son and the great salvation he has provided for you. The meetings will be in the Newington Gospel Hall, and seating arrangements will provide for safe distancing. We welcome you to come and hear for yourself what God has to say to all of us today.